Rohit is a CA with 25 years of experience spanning finance and accounts, and he's currently President Finance and Investor Relations at ZEE Entertainment. Rakesh is the founder and CEO of Quintes Global, and I'm delighted to have them join us today. Hi, Anuradha.
Yeah, Anuradha, how are you? Yeah, I'll just come there. Hi, Anuradha.
Hi, good to see you.
Absolutely, pleasure.
Very interesting session on what all of us are constantly battling with, which is leading through disruptions. I don't know whether there's going to be another word for disruption in the days to come, because it seems like it's a series of disruptions, right? It's not like the way it used to be that in a lifetime or in a year or in a 3-year span, there would be one thing that you could describe as a disruption. Given that it is so much a part of our lives, how do we lead through disruption? And what is the role that CFOs can play in this transformation in their organizations? Rohit has done an absolutely fantastic job of sort of converting, I think, these disruptions into opportunities, and how he has led his firm. But what I'm most delighted about is that we have an opportunity to demonstrate the power of collaboration and what people coming together can do, rather than isolated efforts of trying to cope with what seems like an insurmountable challenge. So, given that not only do you need collaboration, earlier there would be individuals trying to make an effort to figure out how you can present yourselves in a certain manner externally, but also to optimize internally. And I think collaboration, as the two gentlemen on the stage will tell you, that collaboration offers an opportunity to be able to do well on both fronts. You can collaborate for internal efficiencies and optimization, and also to present yourselves to seize growth and to sort of tide over external challenges in the manner that you decide to put yourself together. So I'm going to start with Rohit. Talk to us a little bit about the kind of disruptions you have seen in the last few years, and what you have done to be able to make the most of that disruption that you converted into an opportunity.
Thank you, Anuradha. So, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a real pleasure, and it was pleasure listening to Dr. Pant and he telling us about the economy and so on. And I used some of those in my experience as well. So, first of all, talking about disruptions, let me tell you, the amount of disruption that we've seen in media and entertainment industry, has been just enormous. And despite that, the media and entertainment industry is now today close to 1.5 lakh crore, where we have lost growth in the last 3 years in the COVID environment. So, and what is driving this growth is the disruption. Let me start by saying, I'm sure each one of you consume content. We started with one channel, one DD channel which used to be there, and now we have more than 800 channels which are operating. ZEE itself has more than 40 channels in India and many more outside of India as well. And we just added regional channels and so on. But the biggest disruption has been with the advent of the digital streaming platforms. They've really come and disrupted the way this industry works, and it's also how the content is now consumed, how the content is now under increased competition. I mean, we didn't have players like Amazon earlier in the media entertainment, Netflix, and so on, and this whole OTT has also brought about many other things. Personalized, how you personalize the content. Earlier, when we were just looking at our consuming content, it was more what was given to us. Today it's more about video on demand, what you want to watch, when you want to watch. The other disruption I want to talk about is online gaming. So online gaming is coming up in a big manner, especially the consumption is happening on smartphones. That is the second kind of, still nascent, I would say, but a lot of players are coming in online gaming. So really, if I was to look at it, there are three things I would say. First of all, traditional business models, they need to innovate. They've realized that they need to innovate, otherwise they're not going to have, reliable and consistent revenue streams. Secondly, even technology is now used dramatically. So, for instance, every time we have video views, what we are doing is we are looking at that data, we are analyzing that data. A lot of data analytics goes, and then we personalize to each consumer and say, okay, what is it that the consumer preferences? How are they going to look at it? I mean, so much so, we have actually gone ahead and put up a technology center in Bangalore very recently. It's a tech center, really looking at utilizing artificial intelligence, machine learning, and and again, the whole idea is how can the consumer experience be better? Because we also know that the consumers' habits are shifting. How people were consuming content earlier, what kind of content, from Saas Bahu serial to a very new kind of content which is being consumed, more like thrillers, more romance into it. So all that you get from data, and therefore you have a tech center. So all in all, I'll say a lot of disruptions, and personally I lead disruptive and the digital strategy in ZEE. And quite frankly, earlier we used to call ourselves a content company. Now we call ourselves a, more digital and an artificial intelligence company. So really, from a media company which is there, but more like a technology company now.
No, you guys have done wonders. Rohit, I want to ask you a very quick follow-on question. These disruptions that you described, they can sound very scary. So at what point did your fear turn into excitement? And what did you think you needed for that excitement to then translate into real opportunities to be able to benefit the business, as opposed to, be fearful and retreat or keep the status quo going?
No, absolutely. I think disruptions, I'm talking in a very, now that we have reached a milestone, but at the point when it comes and disrupts you, everybody feels that the good revenue stream and the profit stream that you have is probably not going to be there in the next 10 to 15 years. What do you do about it? Okay, so see, the first thing is you need to take a decision. Are you going to be in the upcoming? Do you want to be in online gaming? We don't know so much about online gaming, but do you want to be in online gaming? Do you want to be in the digital? ZEE took a decision, they have to be in digital. It's going to be a lot of investment required because there are global players with deep pockets which are coming in. But the decision was very clear. If you're not there, like I said, you need those powerful, reliable revenue stream. If you're not there and you think that, those lines, those revenue streams will continue, they will not. They will, well, at the moment, they're still growing. But a point will come when, like how cord cutting has happened in West, it will happen here as well. And you will see those revenue stream coming down. So it's so not so much about choice, it's actually something which was there, but it is about timing, it is about, how prudently you go ahead and invest.
No, very nice. I mean, for me, the summary of what he's saying is that the first response is what you will lose. When there's disruption staring at you, one tends to look at what will this take away from me, and if you can shift your focus and change the frame to saying what can this disruption give to me or do for me, I think you could be on a winning.
I'll just take one small example, I'm sure you all see Bollywood movies. In the last 12 months, really no Bollywood movie is cracking. The only movies which are cracking are regional movies. So you have to change the model immediately, Now we're investing into regional movies because they're all doing 200 crores plus, 300 crore plus, whereas Bollywood movies are not cracking. It may be a short phenomena, but it's a change from what it was. What I'm saying is it's a very continuous process and we need to adapt to it, very quickly.
Very nice. Okay, so that brings me to the, the relevance to this audience, that as a CFO, what were the decision points for you? So it's very well for an organization to say, okay, so now we have to go digital. But as a CFO, what are the factors you need to see? How do you do the evaluation of, is this going to be worth your while? Talk to us a little bit about your role as a CFO in this. And Rakesh, I want you to comment on the same thing in terms of your observations in industry. I mean, you are in some ways like this disruption guru. You're talking to many people
you.
and guiding them through disruptions. So talk to us a little bit about,
Sure.
what is it that's different in terms of what they did? Why are they so, they stand out in terms of the way they have tackled and responded to disruption? So over to you.
Okay, I'll start and then I'll
Yeah.
thank you. So see, when all this happens, disruption, and you're going through a growth phase, so the role of a CFO becomes extremely important. Two things. First of all, organization expectation from you is very large. Consumers' expectation from the organization, that is also enhancing. Every consumer is now expecting much more what it used to expect, which means that we need to step up and and really be that play that pivotal role. So CFOs earlier were more like finance leaders. Today it is, you really need to step up and become a business leader. So I'm a member of the STRATCO, okay, so strategic committee, which is not only about, okay, we are looking at the P&L and so on, but how are we going ahead and taking the strategy for the next 5 years forward? What are we going to buy? What are we going to acquire in terms of collaboration, back-end integration? What are we going to invest into, and so on? So that is the second thing. Then this is whole about it's very, like you said, coined the word digital strategy. Every company needs to have a digital strategy. Okay, I'm going to invest 1,500 crores into the digital strategy. What does it mean? How are you going to monitor that entire spend which is going to be there? So the role that I play is of two. First is capital allocation. So very important, how you allocate capital between the various business streams. So one are, obviously you have the real revenue streams, then you have. So that is one. Secondly, how do you provide data, data insights? How do you provide those data insights? So, and obviously, we try and see that how much can we do on our own, and how much and where and all we can bring in somebody who's a strategic business partner and who's helping us in creating that. So, for instance, we had a strategic partnership with Quintes Global. Now, Quintes Global takes care of all our, finance, P2P, the shared services center, P2P, then O2C, R2R, travel and expense, all those things. And the whole idea is that, okay, I can do a lot of other things which need to be done, but there is an expert here who can take care of, many things. What do they bring in? Why should we select, Quintes Global? So we put in a lot of, criterias. For instance, are they going to give us year-to-year cost savings? Do I need to invest, or they are going to invest and we can take benefit of that? Are they actually going to contribute to the P&L, whether through the data they provide, and so on. And we worked out a very nice model, which I'll let maybe Rakesh talk a little bit about it. But those are the things that we enter into.
Right.
Thanks, Rohit. I think pretty much he talked everything, and I think I always look up to him as a great leader, as a CFO. I mean, to your question, I think the role of a CFO, rather, and you know it more than many of us, how it has changed, evolved over the years. I think last particularly few years, it has been absolutely a dramatic shift in terms of looking at what it used to be more like a controller to a co-pilot to the business and the CEO. Actually use the word co-pilot.
Yeah.
And things in terms of not focusing pretty much silos, functional focus, cost driven, bottom line driven, versus the CFOs are really looking at top line growth, organizational journey, strategy, etc. I think the few areas which very clearly comes in our mind, I think Rohit also covered few, which we see across the CFOs as we interact with them. One is there's a lot of, given thanks to disruption, there's an enhancing resilience which is very much there. And I think now the expectation is to even move towards anti-fragility. In fact, I know the CFO Collective had a event in Goa all about resilience to anti-fragility, and we talked a lot about that. I think that is something which is one thing which we are finding a lot happening. The second one is, actually, Rohit talked about CFOs as a business leader. I will say now the CFOs are digital leaders. And we are seeing progressive CFOs really taking the charge of digital disruptions, bringing automations, onboarding some right technology, etc., and challenging that status quo very clearly. The second one, I will say. The third one, which we are finding a lot of CFOs looking at, is leveraging the ecosystem partners. They're not going with the traditional option of saying, I will reinvent everything, I'll do everything on my own, etc. They're able to really segregate where the expertise required in multiple avatars, etc., etc. But that's something which is another perspective which we are seeing. The fourth one I will say is the CFOs are now becoming also role models to transform support function to a strategic function through shared services. So just not looking at the transactions and so on and so forth. Really moving the support function, and not just only when I say support, not only finance as a function, but other support functions also, they take a lead to drive that change to a strategic function. And the last point I will say on the CFO perspective is the whole idea of embracing artificial intelligence for cognitive insights and analytics. And artificial intelligence is just not about some tableaus and data insights and so on and so forth. It is literally looking at artificial intelligence with multiple subcontinents under that. Right.
Can I put you guys on the spot and tell me what you don't do well?
What you don't do well?
What do you wish you had done differently, or if you had done it in time? Is there something, the lessons in what we do well are of course great, but sometimes it's very useful for the audience to know what one could have done better, or what you didn't do because of your training as a finance person.
No, I think there are many things we could have done better. I mean, I'm just going to take a couple of them. And I think the fact is that, we try to do things ourselves a lot, I think one of the things we could have done better is onboard maybe a strategic partner far earlier. We try to do it ourselves. If we had got it earlier, we would have got the benefits, earlier. I think secondly, it's a hit and trial. There is no thing like I'm going to get right first time. So you do make investments in technologies, but we all know how technology obsolescence happens, and then you realize, oh my God, this is not worth it now. We should have done it. Upgradation of some systems, SAP and so on.
Can I just butt in and ask you that has the tolerance in the system to these kinds of mistakes improved? Because earlier it was the fear of making a mistake that, and especially a financial mistake, you just don't want to take a wrong decision. Is this hit and trial that you mentioned, is there greater acceptance of that?
There is. There is, because people realize that nobody can go right first time. Secondly, the risk appetite, which is a risk management, is a very important aspect. The risk appetite also is increasing because you have risk mitigations coming in place straight away.
Nice.
So one of the things that we do is identify top 10 risks. What are the top 10 risks that we are going to go through? Do it in a very systematic manner, and then look at what are the risk mitigation. You might not be able to eliminate it, but once you are aware about it, you are able to do something about it.
No, you can't eliminate risk because there's no risk, no reward.
There's no reward.
You can. So if you want any reward, we have to, have the.
Absolutely.
Rakesh, will you tell us candidly what do you struggle the most with when you work with CFOs?
Absolutely. I think there are two specific examples, and this is true for even our partnership and many other transformational journey which we have seen. One is, I think this whole myth that technology will do everything. That's a myth. So the great product, actually, there's a metric which says that 90% of the POCs don't see the day of life, that of the day. The reason being is the quality of the product or the feature of the product is not even well absorbed or communicated to the user who are going to use it. And this is where we have a philosophy called transformation in a box. We have also learned over the period by doing these mistakes. Now we are saying transformation in a box is about good product, which is most contextual to you. It is not about great product. It is about a relevant product and a contextual product. And second is driving that change, and the stakeholder connect of the value of the product is very, very critical. So that's why it's transformation in a box we look at. The second one is the stakeholder reluctance. We all do a lot of these things called, there's a watermelon effect as we call it, where you'll find all SLAs are 100%, which is all green, but the stakeholders within are, not happy with everything. That is where we have also shifted. This is the learning which we have also got, that it's just not about, the SLAs, voice of customers, etc. It is about stakeholder connect. So we created a framework called Stakeholder Satisfaction Index, to understand what stakeholders are thinking much beyond what users are thinking or what my SLAs are talking about. And the third and the last one I will say is, it's also about 2% factor as we call it. And this is something which we learned over the last 2 decades. that the 2% factor is with the strategic partner or the partner organization. It's typically, as we call 50-50, there's nothing called joint venture as we know, it's 51-49, 50 plus 1 share, whatever you call it. So we take that 2% ownership of that partnership and say, we will have to take proactive ownership of delivering on that. We can't just wait and say, oh, I have already pushed my paper, somebody has not responded, so I'll wait for it. And that is what we were doing at some point of time. So we changed that. We said, okay, now it's 2% factors with us.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because my next question was going to be that what's the skin in the game? You know, you mentioned the importance of a partner. He mentioned the importance of collaboration, partnership. What's the skin in the game of the partner for this to work well?
So see, when we have onboarded Quintes Global, and it was also through a lot of screening, and like I said, you know, you do things yourself and then you realize you can't just invest into everything yourself. There is a huge ROI. So you bring in a partner who brings in investment, whereas you're looking at, you know, what is the return that you're getting into. But a partner with a skin in the game is the most important. And the reason for that is that if you are going to be successful, and you have to make sure he's successful as well, because his success will then fuel your success. And therefore, you know, whether we talk about SLAs, whether we talk about, like I said, you know, bringing in the right tools, automation tools, etc., whether we talk about improving and simplifying processes. So there is a set of processes that you have, and you know what you do is one of the things that I have seen in the digital strategy is that unless you simplify the processes, it's not going to work. How's your partner going to help you in that aspect? Tools I already spoke about, and I would say the other thing is cost. You know, is your cost actually reducing? And when I say reducing, I don't maybe mean the overall cost, but on a per unit level, is the cost coming down? What are the savings you are getting there? I think those are the things that we looked at, which then meant that if they were able to deliver on all these parameters, how do we incentivize them?
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. No, it sounds like a perfect partnership. And also some of the things that you've done, you know, in the run up to this event and sort of preparing for this session, we read a lot of what you've done. And it's actually tremendous what you've done in terms of bringing that strategic intent to the transformation through a digital strategy. And thank you so much for, you know, sort of be willing to share both your learnings with so much candor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just a couple of things I wanted to put in perspective, because just to clarify that we are not a BPO company, right? So we are a business transformation company. We are an innovative organization which has brought in a new age model, being into business services for 2.5 decades, something called dedicated captive as a new model. So that is where Rohit was talking about. We got really in terms of a partnership tied to the hips to say how we will deliver together. And the few constructs, like you were talking about cost saves, so it's a contractual commitment. We have done it for 5 years by saying every anniversary of the contract, there will be a cost reduction. We are talking about not just cost reduction, because that is something which we believe is given. Now you have to drive it any which ways. One important component is investment optimization, because there is a lot of challenge everybody feels. The CFO feels about return on investment. And I have been talking to the CFOs now saying that, what is return on investment? I'll give you return on the day one, right? So no investment for you at all. That's something which is important. So we have converted something called CAPEX to OPEX model, pay as you use. So now you don't need to worry about your investments, license, transformation, technology, etc. The failure is ours, success is yours, very clearly. Number 3, we actually, where our economic value comes, where our passion and joy comes, is all about the value delivery. Actually, we say there's a framework called value potential to value delivery. Earlier, value delivery was incidental. Ho gaya to theek hai, I'll communicate to the customer. We have a framework called value potential, looking at the data and saying what you can do in your, you know, AP, AR, because that entire transaction, as we say, mantra is transaction to transformation. The problem is we start looking at transaction as transaction processing. We say transaction to transformation. And this is where, for instance, we work together to find out what can we write back in the P&L, what kind of debtor creditors, you know, reconciliations we can do which can result into value. I still remember one challenge. Rohit came to one of the reviews and he talked to me and said, you know what, you know, Rakesh, we produce movies and there are 2 kinds of movies. I'm just sharing that one example. And he was actually on one of the interviews that day in newspaper. He said, because of the success of Kashmir Files, there are 2 kinds of movie we produce. There's a Radhe where we fund some 250 crores, and the movie like Kashmir Files where we spend about 7 crores, and we get the kind of returns. 250 gives me some 1/5, and 7 crores give me 400 crores. The point is, your team really looks at the DSO. And I always have 2,000 crores in my receivables. If you can just move in 200 crores faster by 20 days, I can produce more Kashmir Files. And that will have an impact to the business. And that is where we have brought in an AI, artificial intelligence, to see on a day-to-day basis, how is the needle movement? And then saying, how can I bring something more in terms of receivables where the CFO can utilize for the right business reasons. So that's some of the skin in the game which we have. And of course, we look at gain share, and Rohit has been a great customer. And
I just want to add, even our net promoter score, how they do a satisfaction survey, that has tremendously increased. I think it has increased beyond 80%, and Rakesh tells me it is one of the best in the benchmark.
The industry benchmark is about 65%. We are on an NPS about 80%. So I think we are happy that our customers are happy.
Because when Rakesh tells me about this model, I just believe like they just make this up.
Right.
So it's nice to have someone who's benefited from it and share the story. So thank you all, and I'm sure people will have an opportunity to talk to you more closely. But also, having read what you've done, we were, Sudeshna and I were sitting and talking, we just wanted to recognize what you have done at ZEE, and we have a small memento for you. But please join me in thanking our panelists for this very...
Thank you so much. Come.
Thank you.